Hi, everybody. Welcome to Trans Talk. I have lost track of episodes because these are now videos. Interesting, right, guys? Please like and subscribe. Robin Tran is trying to make something out of her life, namely money. So, um, there's a lot of things I want to talk about. Um, I want to talk about healing a little bit. And maybe it won't all be about healing, but the reason I'm talking about healing in this episode is because it's just what's on my mind, and sometimes I get fixated on certain things um, that are on my mind. So I'm going to start talking about healing, but it might go into other categories that I've also wanted to talk about. The reason I want to talk about healing is because today I had a wave of nostalgia hit over me. And then nostalgia is something that I always get scared when I get swept up under. Nostalgia is something that scares me a lot. But what has kind of been helping lately is that when nostalgia hits me, I just go, "This is nostalgia," and that helps a little bit. Um, but I get nostalgic um, a lot, and I realized today that a huge trigger for getting nostalgic is when I get very tired. And I think my friend Christina has said this. I've heard other people say this, and it's true that sometimes when you get tired, it feels like you're depressed when you're not depressed, right? So I'm trying to keep that in mind because I'm going through something right now called a post happiness crash. Now, I thought that this was all in my head, because it sounds like such like psychobabble Instagram, bullshit or whatever, right? But um, yesterday, I had one of the most peaceful days of my entire life, right? Um, also, like, let's say even a few days ago, like I had a photo shoot, and afterward, I felt so fucking happy and powerful, right? Um, and after both of those days, I felt like a crash, like a really intense crash afterwards. Now, um, the crash that happened today was, I guess, I don't know if it was more or less intense than the last one. I just had more awareness of it, which is good. It's like I'm trying to predict these cycles, like if you can kind of like look at the cycles in an objective way instead of just like letting yourself get swept up in it, you can actually make some conscious choices to not like let it get swept up, like to not let it just kind of like an ocean, just like you're fucking swimming in it, you're fucking feel like you're suffocating. This is never gonna go away, like to kind of remind myself that this will pass, right? This is kind of a thing people told me a few months ago, kept repeating it. This will pass, and I think that's finally seeping into my head. But um, yesterday I had this really peaceful day. I got some really good advice from my friend Christina, and she, who I'm kind of living with. She's my that's why he's like my friend, who set up this podcast and everything. She's been amazing to me, and she also has these nuggets of wisdom. Um, and she was kind of telling me that like I need to give myself like a lot of grace because all this shit that that I've been through, it just kind of happened, Like I keep thinking like, why can't I get over how sad I am about everything? It's already been 2 months, It's like, I think I've been through objectively a lot when I like really really like look at what I've been through. Even though I was the cause of a lot of it, that's true. I'm not taking away any responsibilities or making anyone feel sorry for me, but like losing partnerships and housing and all sense of stability and like um just any kind of like connection to my entire past, you know um and it just like having to process a lot of this year and how just how out of my mind I was, like and I didn't realize how out of my mind I was until like I'm kind of like stepping out of it now, and I kind of look back at the way I acted all year with like a bit of horror, like I can't believe I did that stuff because I can't picture doing that stuff today. um I feel like I've done like, I don't know, like 15 years of growing in 6 weeks. um but it doesn't mean I'm caught up. 6 weeks is like what I think is the equivalent of getting your GED or something. Does that even make sense? I wish I had an audience. We're gonna answer that. Does that make any sense? Anyone out there? Um, but Christina kind of just was telling me like, this stuff just happened to you, so give yourself some grace. Because I was telling her like I'm doing all this kind of somatic therapy and all this other shit. Like somatic therapy and exposure therapy and journaling and all this stuff, and I can't seem to get over certain things. And when she told me that, you just kind of it just needs time, basically. Um, and she explained to me scientifically why, also like chemicals and all this stuff. I don't understand chemical stuff at all, but when she started using chemical terms, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is like, okay, so it's kind of chemical. It's kind of like, I read online. It's kind of like if your bone, if you like broke a bone, right? Like, or like on your, like you broke your arm or something, and it takes 6 weeks to heal. You can't like journal it to, hey, heal faster. You can do things to make it smoother, but it's going to take a while to heal. So when I heard that, I kind of was able to surrender myself to the timeline a little bit. And also one other thing she said was, because I was telling her, well, I'm doing all this stuff because I want to get rid of all my distractions so that I can make money. That's kind of my goal. And she said to me, just make money. That's all you need to worry about right now is just make money. That'll solve a lot of your problems. And the rest of this stuff, you're going to be up and down for a while. It'll sort itself out. So you just worry about making money. And yesterday was, I think, the first time in a long time where my entire day was dedicated to trying to make money. And I've never ever done that before in my whole life. There's always been some kind of block about money. Me and money. There's always this trigger with money. Like, guys, I want money. Like, I don't ever have money, and it's like such an embarrassing thing because I should have more money than I do. Especially realizing the past few weeks that I'm so fucking capable, right? Like, I don't. My self esteem is way higher than it's ever been. It's not even close, right? It doesn't mean I don't have moments of deep insecurity, of self doubt. I have all those things still, but the powerlessness is gone now, right? So there is a responsibility now because the powerlessness is gone now that I know I can make money. So that's the first step, and it's important because I think before I didn't feel like I could make money because I'm just a piece of shit. I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like, just like obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. So when she gave me this goal, I got really excited. Like, I was like, why don't we make it a game to see how much money I could make, right? So, like I've been doing little things like monetizing my Instagram and like setting up subscriptions. I'm doing this video podcast, like I'm working really hard on it. Like, there's a whole studio and shit, like, hopefully people will like and subscribe and people will listen to it, and I'll get a bigger YouTube channel because I think it's good, like I'm just going to say, as a fan of comedy and of myself, honestly, I think these podcasts are quite good. I I listen to them. I listen to my own podcast because I think that it sounds good. The logic makes sense. It's kind of pretty charming, right? It feels like you're just hanging out with me, and people seem to like hanging out with me, which is something that I'm realizing also. That this is another weird thing to realize, right? Like, another good thing about myself that I'm realizing. So all that said is the more I'm learning about myself, my capabilities, the more responsibilities I'm feeling. And I think those are the moments I get really tired. Those are the moments I get really nostalgic about stuff, is when I realize that I am capable and I don't have any more excuses. My excuses are gone. I think my whole life I've been looking for excuses of why I can't do something because I don't know. I think, like, if I'm really honest with myself, I think my body was literally too tired to do things for a very long time. And I'm realizing it now. Like, I think it started when I was a very little kid. Like, if I'm being really honest with myself, and the stuff, I'm kind of realizing some of this stuff in real time. There was a lot of valid reasons for a long time when I couldn't make money, when I couldn't get out of bed, and when I couldn't do a lot of things, and I was legitimately powerless. But stories change, right? Like, even though those things were horrible things that happened to me, those things aren't happening to me anymore, and it's been a really long time, and I'm almost 40 years old. And there's only so many times you can use these things as an excuse where it's like, okay, well, look, everyone has something, right? And I'm not saying that to dismiss anyone's pain. I'm saying As somebody if I was like a straight white guy saying that, you'd be like, fuck you, right? But I'm saying this about somebody that has objectively been through a lot of horrible things in my life, right? But at some point, you just have to like this is just like a story to keep yourself from doing stuff that you need to be doing. So I'm just gonna say that at this present moment, I don't have the powerlessness anymore, and that's very scary to me because I do have. Oh God, this is so. My friend Sasha, I was giving her this little rant, and she texted me the Uncle Ben quote: "With great power comes great responsibility," and I was very, very embarrassed by that. Um, but no, it's true. I was really thinking of what I was going to say about my childhood is when I was a little kid and I found out that when I got older I would have to get a job. I wanted to kill myself, and I was 7 years old. Like that's how tired I was at 7 years old. Like I was suicidal when I was 7 years old. I would go to the kitchen and I would rub a knife to my wrist, like rub it, and then I would get mad at myself for not being able to push it in. Like I just had like my home environment was so terrible all the time. And now when I'm looking back on it, like I thought I was lazy, but I think I was just like fucking traumatized, and I was using all of my energy to just kind of cope with the trauma of being a child with an alcoholic and a bipolar person. Meanwhile, your sister hates you for existing because you are the boy, and your parents treated you better than your sister, which is not your fault, but it feels like your fault because your sister's telling you that life was better before you were born. So I have a whole entire household of people who were abusing me in some way, and I didn't have any kind of sense of normalcy, or stability. And I mean, we can get into all the trauma in a different episode, but specifically, I never saw an example of people making consistent money. Because my mom would make money a little bit. She would work at like she would work at some place for like a week, and then she would get really sad and depressed, and she would stop going, and she'd get fired. Um, my dad owned a refrigeration shop. He would fix refrigerators, but otherwise he would just drink a lot. He was like a freelance refrigerator repairman, but brilliant at refrigerators. I think what my dad really wanted to do was comedy. If you've seen my David Letterman episode on Netflix, my dad used to do like comedy on the Vietnamese radio station in Garden Grove back in Southern California, But I didn't have examples like role models of hard work and money. Um, so it's just not something that I've ever had to really think about. Like I got a job when I was 19. I worked at a movie theater for a few years. That ended up just me and a bunch of coworkers like making out and stuff. That's the whole other episode of like that was bad. A lot of anyway, I digress, right? I worked at a debt settlement company for a little while. I worked at Target for a while. I pushed carts. Um, the debt settlement company, by the way, I think is like completely down under. I think like while I was working there, like during one of my shifts, I think like there was a law that came in that said debt settlement was like now technically illegal. And I remember like the guy in the office would just start yelling, "Okay, everyone, turn off your computers." It was a horrible job. It was one of those jobs where like you and your coworkers would look at each other and like if the FBI came, you'd be like, "What the fuck? Like, this makes sense. We don't know what this place even is." But I needed an office job, and it paid very well, and I lived close by. So oh yeah, when I worked at Target, by the way, I was a cart attendant at Target, pushing carts into the store. But I was always tired. Like I was just pervasive exhaustion my whole life, and I remember I would be in my orange vest, and all the carts would be in the store, and there was no more carts in the parking lot, and I would just like lay down on the concrete floor in front of the store and just take naps like in front of the store, and people started complaining like, that cart attendant is sleeping in front of the store like a homeless person. Ironically, like now a homeless person, not really, but kind of. But yeah, it was like I never lasted in any of my jobs. Like every single one of my jobs, I something would always go wrong mentally for me. Like there would be times when I was working at the movie theater where I would be so like tired, and I don't mean like tired as in like my body's tired, but it was like my brain was kind of broken, you know. So I would like give a coworker money to do my job for me during that shift. That they if like they're also doing their job, and then like I could give them money to do my job too. Like when I was an associate manager, and sometimes I would give them more money than I was making that day because I was just kind of buying time to not get fired, you know? Like I had whatever my mom had, like just like this kind of inability to like be consistent and make money. Um I guess this episode is about making money. Like I'm talking about healing, but um a lot of it does come back to money. Like my stress about money and my stress about just being an adult, you know? I think money is something that I've always thought about but was always too scared to think deeply about. My relationship with money is so fucked up. It's because like if you don't have a lot of money in America, it's like you're basically invisible. Like you you exist but you don't really like the people who are as poor as my family was, they're not getting represented on television. You know, like poor people on TV looked rich to us, you know? Like the kind of poor that you are, you're not even getting like bad representation. You're getting like no representation as in you are invisible. You don't matter in America if you don't have a lot of money. That fucks with your self-esteem, right? Like if you feel like you're worthless, then it's even harder to make money because you feel like you don't even deserve it. You know, like you want it, but you don't deserve it because you hate yourself so much and you suck because you're a burden on this world. You're a burden to this country. You're all you do is take, take, take. Like your brain does all these fucked up things to you when you don't have a lot of money, right? Like the more poor you are, the more things get dark. It like not only does it get dark, it just like literally you just don't have enough options to fucking do anything, right? Like it sounds so obvious, but like think about the lack of options, right? Like um I remember when I was like working at the movie theater and I was making like 6.75 an hour and I got like a raise, I was making like 8.50 an hour, and I thought that was so much money at the time. I felt like rich, you know. That's how, because from what I was doing before, which was nothing basically, and my needs were just like I didn't really have expensive needs, you know. Like I think I bought a lot of food, and some wrestling DVDs, and otherwise I didn't really do much, you know. But I remember like once a month, me and my friends would kind of get dressed up and we'd go to Olive Garden, and that was like our bougie, like that was it, you know. That was like the highest end that we can possibly get is Olive Garden. So I don't really get triggered by many things, but like when I hear people make fun of McDonald's or Olive Garden or Cheesecake Factory and stuff, it's like, hey, for some people that was really expensive. And I know I don't want to tell people not to make jokes. Make jokes about whatever the fuck you want. Um I'll make jokes about it just to show you that I don't care, no, whatever. But I'm saying like it does trigger me because I think classism and elitism actually bother me more than like racism or sexism or transphobia. Because you hear how worked up I'm getting right now about this shit. Like I get so worked up, like I want to scream. I get so fucking mad about money, Um, but anyway, it fucks with your self esteem, and then it becomes like this self fulfilling prophecy that you're worthless. So you don't feel like you're worth something. So you don't ask for what you're worth because you feel worthless, right? It's a constant, endless cycle of shame and all this shit. Um, and actually, if you give me a little bit of time, I'm going to circle this back to nostalgia in a little bit. Because my wheels are spinning now, and I'm starting to understand like what I'm really thinking about right now. Um, I just always saw um, like if it always astounds me what some people think poor is. Like that's kind of like when I was hanging out with like a lot of white people. When I felt like I was kind of like the in my Asian group of friends, like it was mostly Asian in Garden Grove. I was always kind of like outcast as like because I was fat, and Asian people are more fat phobic than even white people are. So I always felt like I was like, these Asians don't like me. Let me go to the white people, right? And I hung out with white people for a couple years, and a lot of different problems, namely the racism. Um, but they would talk about how poor they all were, and I was like, "You guys are poor next to other white people." Like, it's like it's not a. And I know this is going to be like people are going to say like, "Well, there are white trailer park trash and all that stuff or whatever." Um, so I'm not saying like no white people are impoverished. You know, it goes against class consciousness. So maybe I'm misspeaking a little bit there. I'm saying with the white friends that I was with during that time, their idea of poor was my idea of rich. Like that's how like that's how like wide the chasm is between like I think there's the there was a book about like there's the working class and then there's the working poor, and like no one talks about the working poor, like the working poor, you know, like that those the reason why you don't see working poor people on TV is because they don't have time to have interesting lives. You know, they're too busy working all the time and being fucking stressed out about rent and not having enough money and all this shit. You know, like they're always just stressed out about money all the time. Um, so they don't have time to go on a date on Friday and like maybe they do, whatever. You know, they, of course some they have a little bit of a social life, but but one thing I also find interesting about the way we view money in America, just even the way we view work, right? Because in America, the only jobs that really count to this country in any official capacity is Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday they're the weekend, right? But everywhere these people go on the weekend, people are working. So for Saturday and Sunday for most of this country are not the weekend; they are work days, right? So that's another example of just kind of like feeling kind of invisible, because I remember when I worked at Regal Cinemas, the movie theater. I worked on Thanksgiving, I worked on fucking Christmas, I worked on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I worked all the week. I worked every weekend. Like we all worked on the weekend because no one goes to the movie like on a Tuesday afternoon, right? Like, for like half a shift, right, at Regal, like for like a weekday, right, from like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., there would be a total of maybe 18 people the whole day. And then at night, there would be like 300 or whatever. But then on the weekend, it'd be like thousands of people every day, right? So, okay, well, I guess it's the weekend where no one's working. So if no one's working, then who's that behind the counter? Who's that ripping up your tickets and pouring your drink? Who are those people? If it's the weekend, we're all relaxing, right? And I remember feeling very distinctly like, huh. And so do I exist in this country? Like I just have the feeling of like, do I exist here? Because obviously my job is not important enough for it to be considered, a weekend, right? So anyway, yeah, it goes pretty deep, I think. And also like, oh my God, the shaming that happens when you don't have a lot of money, the fucking shaming. Like I remember, like I was making like $8 an hour, right? And I had friends that be like, "You got to set aside 10% of every paycheck, and then you'll buy a house." Like, and then like they would be like, "Why are you wasting your money?" If I got like a Jay-Z out like CD at Target for like $13.99, it's like you shouldn't have gotten that Jay-Z CD because you're like, what the fuck else am I supposed to do? I can't afford a house on $8 an hour. Are you fucking kidding me? Like it was like just the insulting amount of evidence, like of advice you would get from people who made a lot more money. The guy who told me that was an ambulance driver, so he made a fucking shit ton of money. I mean, I think that he, but to be fair, maybe that's a bad example because I mean, his weekends are probably. I mean, I think ambulance drivers probably work 7 days a week, right? Like, they also work Saturday and Sunday. I don't think people stop dying on the weekends. That's just a detour. This is supposedly a comedy podcast at some point, sometimes, right? Anyway, no, it's because he made a lot of money, so that kind of connects, right? Yeah, and then so like, so you would make a little, you wouldn't make that much money. You would spend it on like a couple CDs maybe, and then you would feel guilty about, oh, I should have saved. I should have saved this money for what? For what? Like when I look back on it, it's like it wasn't my fault that I wasn't making more money with the job I was doing, because the thing that I was realizing, right, when I think about this, is that in every job I had, the more work I did, the less money I made. Like Regal Cinemas, like that was the hardest job I ever had, and I was making $6.75 an hour. You know, Target was also very hard. I was making $8 an hour there. That was, I mean, I was pushing carts like into the store. Like there are like fires in Anaheim Hills where you're like inhaling smoke and shit. You know, I remember one day I was pushing carts into the store and I was inhaling all the smoke and I couldn't stop coughing. And then I asked the store like, can you guys like get a Gatorade for me? Like I was asking my managers like, can you guys like use whatever petty cash or whatever for a Gatorade? And they're like, well, that's not really company policy. And I'm like, you guys can't get me a Gatorade? Like I'm like coughing up smoke here. And then they had a meeting. These fucking people had a meeting. And after 10 minutes or so, they came out and they agreed that they can get me a Gatorade. I was making $8 an hour at this job, but when I was working at like a different company, I don't want to say the name of this company because I don't know why I'm afraid of lawsuits. Who gives a shit? But I was making $22 an hour, and I was mostly on Facebook all day. Like that was the highest paying job I ever had. By the way, I had it for like 2 or 3 years. I was making $22 an hour, and I thought I was a fucking millionaire. I was finally able to like pay half of rent, contribute financially to things, but you know, like, it was it. It was only that small period of time when I made a little bit of money. Otherwise, I've been notoriously really bad about it, and it has been a great source of shame for me. Like, I should be making a lot more money doing comedy. Like, objectively speaking, I should be making a lot more, given not just my talent, but my social media presence, my credentials. You know, like if you go on like if you type in Robin Tran, like there's a Wikipedia page and there is a legitimate resume of things I've done. I've done a lot of things, but I didn't do a lot of things in between that stuff, right? That's where I fucked up. I don't want to say fucked up. That's too negative, but like objectively speaking, I should be making thousands of dollars. You know, like I should be making thousands of dollars. But like the more self-esteem issues I had from not having to, you know, I was kind of supported for a lot of my life, you know, like there was like periods where I had, you know, I had jobs and everything, but those were kind of anomalies in my life, right? Like I grew up super poor, right? I was impoverished, right? We didn't have much. But I didn't work during that period. I didn't have to make money during that period. So when I talk to you about suffering through poverty, I suffered through poverty, but that's different from I worked a lot, you know? So I want to just be clear that I don't have it as bad as some people do who have had to just work 2 or 3 jobs and all that stuff. But yeah, when I was a kid, you know, we would do anything to save money, right? Like there was like a 29-cent hamburgers on Wednesday at McDonald's, and we would just my mom would buy 20 hamburgers. It was a limit of 20, and we would just put it in the fridge, and that would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner until Sunday, which was 39-cent cheeseburgers. And then they would do 20 cheeseburgers, and that was like our meal for a while because it was so fucking cheap. And that fucks with your health. You know, it fucks with your, like, I shouldn't have been eating that much salt. It fucked up my intestines, you know? I wasn't drinking any water. I didn't drink water for, like, the first, like, 15 years of my life. Like, I just didn't even know you're supposed to drink water. So, yeah. So, like, poverty fucks up your self-esteem. It fucks up your mental health, your physical health, and everything else. And so since I was supported, you know, financially through a lot of this stuff while having low self-esteem, and I was not, I wanted to make money, but there was something stopping me from doing it. There was some, like, thinking I'm a piece of shit who can't do anything, thinking that I'm useless and worthless and powerless, and it would just become this kind of this self-hatred, like weighing me down, like aggressively weighing me down, where I felt like I couldn't get out of it no matter how hard I tried. I didn't know how to outthink it. I didn't know how to fucking get past it, you know? But in the past couple of months, I've had to. Like, it's just I didn't have a choice, you know. Um, I think I've talked about this in other places, but just in case you don't know, my whole life blew up a couple months ago, and I'm saying this as like I didn't get better like fucking right away, right? Like the first 2 or 3 weeks when everything fell apart, I was so suicidal. I thought I was never gonna get past it, you know. But I've been getting past it, you know. And since I've had to be on my own, and I've had to kind of like be a kind of scrappy and make money, right? What Christina was like, just make money. And now I'm mentally okay to do all that stuff. The past few weeks, I've realized that I'm actually not powerless at all. In fact, it's the opposite. Is that I am quite powerful. Like, it's weird for me to accept that, but there is, and I say this as, and I lean into the arrogance and the cockiness for almost ironic reasons, and I say this as like I don't think I'm better than anyone, and I mean that genuinely. Again, I'm always worried about having a runaway ego, right? Um, but when it comes to being powerful, I think there is so much objective evidence to it that it would be like it would actually be like delusional to not accept those things, right? So because I was so into my identity as a powerless person, it's hard to step into the identity of a powerful person. Um, but I'm doing that now because there is just too much objective evidence of it. And Christina, I told them before all this that I don't think I'm better than anyone in a genuine way. So you're only going to hear the second half of this, but where I was amping up to this. But there's too much evidence that I'm a very powerful person in terms of just like social media outreach, the friendships I have, the relationships I have, the quality of friendships I have, the quality of content I've put out, and just like how much people gravitate towards me, and like how much people really like me. You know, like when I like get rid of the story of being unlikable and everything. I was kind of talking about on stage today at an open mic about like the burden of being so charming, you know, and it's half a joke. It's like it's not a burden really. It's kind of a burden in kind of a joking way, but um, I've really started to accept this power that I have. So this is going to circle back to the very beginning of the episode. What I was talking about was actually talking about advice that you gave me, Christina. You gave me about just make money and everything else will sort itself out, you know? And so just having that kind of motivation with this kind of newfound power I had, that's why yesterday was such a great day for me, you know, before the post happiness crash, where I was reaching out to venues. I was like monetizing shit on Instagram. I was like getting people to do some stand up coaching for me. I felt so powerful. I felt energized by work, and that's never happened in my life. I didn't take a nap. That's the first day I didn't take a nap. I don't even know how long, months, years. I felt energized, and I felt wonderful, and I felt powerful, and I predicted this post happiness crash would happen, and then it did happen. And so when I got nostalgic, which is what I brought up in the beginning of the episode, that was just me kind of being really tired, right? Like it's like, oh fuck. You remember what it was like when you didn't have to worry about this, when you were just like a piece of shit and you didn't like, you thought you didn't have power, you thought you didn't have to do this or that, you can talk your way through anything. And so like when I get tired, then it's like, yeah, I'll get nostalgic about the past because there was less responsibility. And that's all it is. Nostalgic about the past doesn't mean a past that you were happy with. It could be any time period. You're just nostalgic about a time when you didn't realize that you have the power to change all this stuff, and just the burden of not having excuses anymore. And that's what happens when I get really tired. My brain is not used to thinking positive things when I'm tired, you know? So like if I'm thinking about, if I'm tired, and what I'm going to think about naturally is I'm going to think about, what did I feel like in this state of mind before in my life? Like I felt really tired, right? I felt like complacent. So my brain's going to go to a time where I was complacent and tired, which is most of my life, like different parts of my life. Because if I'm tired and I'm thinking about this new identity that I'm building, I need to finish the rest of this list that I'm doing, and I need to make a video for my subscriptions on Instagram, and I get, that's too exhausting. So what does my brain do? It goes to the past. And I realized that was the pattern I realized today was it goes to the past, so I don't have to worry about making money. And that's the nature of healing, is realizing these patterns. And I don't know. I don't know if there is an end destination when it comes to healing. I have a friend who's a therapist, and she says that she doesn't like the idea that healing has like an end point, like you can fix it. I think that's good. I think that helps me out a lot to know that there's no end point to it. But noticing patterns has helped me a lot. Like, I was feeling really distraught today with this post happiness crash. I still did the open mic. I'm still doing this podcast. So there is improvement to pushing through the stuff and to being able to like kind of zoom out and like look at the pattern, and like almost like you're looking at yourself crying and going, this fucking sucks, but you're not going to cry forever. So cry and wash your face off, be a little bit despondent, and just go do your shit. And I think that's because I'm recognizing the patterns I have, and so all the self-help bullshit is not useless. At least something good came out of it. But yeah, so I think that's all I have to say with this episode. I'm really glad that. Oh, Christina, you'd love this episode. 90% of it was about money. It was actually about money. It's funny because Christina and I were talking about money in the car, and I think maybe it just like something about it like really hit me, and I think a lot of people need to listen to this episode, because I really think Christina was right about how a lot of people, they don't have this perspective of what it's like to grow up extremely poor to the point where you're invisible, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe so I can get some money, right? Robin Tran's trying to make money now. I had a lot of fun doing this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening. All right, love you guys. Have a great night.
You're great.
Thank
You're
you.
so great.